What's up, everybody? It's your boy. So here's an example of why I'm no longer on social media. This is a real exchange that I saw a year or so ago under a video of Mariah Carey. I then put music to myself doing a dramatic reading of it, and here you go.
You should hear her live. Worst gig I've ever seen. No chance, amigo. I will give birth before I see her live. I am so sorry you had to go through that. Thank you, friend. Where's all this hate for her voice coming from? No hate here, my little millennial friend. This is a comment platform, and some of the comments do not like her voice. Sure, she's a lovely person, but in some opinions, she is said to have an awful voice. Why do you automatically jump to hate? Like some people like yourself automatically jump to the racism card. There are a lot of reasons on the scale before you get to hate and being racist, so stop playing the hate speech card and try to see that people like myself just don't like the voice. Now you have your safe space, you can relax and know that everything in the world is okay, but know that some people may not agree with you or nor hold the same opinion. That does not make them haters or racists or fascists or bigots. Just people like yourself who hold different opinions. Now that I've explained to you humans have been for centuries... Oh, wait. Now that I've explained to you how humans have been for centuries, I hope you are better off for it. And before you just go telling me that you are not a millennial, just ask yourself this. Have you ever said that you hated something, whether it be hot mustard or... hot mustard or a full day's work, or even waking up early, and I bet you have, then you are no different to the people you accuse of hating. Learn to live without being offended by different opinions. Sheesh, coming in hot. You should check out some of her other music if you haven't heard it. I like a few of her other songs, but I can't comment on if she's great live. I just like the music. Better come in hot than coming in with ill-prepared comments. I have no desire to check any of her music. You should listen to music artists with talent.
AKA Reed from Shameless Nerd. Today's video is about becoming curators of the things that we watch again. If you end up liking this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. You can also join these beautiful people on the screen right here by clicking the join button to become a member of the channel, whereupon you will get exclusive access to some members-only videos, as well as access to every video a few days early. You can also join the Shameless Nerd Discord at the link in the description, and you can email me with any questions, comments, concerns, or criticisms of the final season of Game of Thrones at readfromshamelessnerd@gmail.com. Also, this video is sponsored by Uppbeat, which is my first unambiguously ethically sound sponsorship. Let's go, baby. I'll talk about that in a little while, but all right, let's get into it. The algorithm is bad, not good, stinky, poopy. I have talked about this on several occasions in my videos, and I've even given specific thoughts as to how to use YouTube, which is the only social media platform I still use, obviously because like this isn't a hidden camera filming me, like I'm much more vulgar when the cameras are off. And I've talked about how important it is to be creative, to watch and listen to creative stuff, and to be deliberate about how you spend your free time. My problem with algorithmic curation, ultimately above everything else, and I've talked at length about a ton of other issues that I have with it, my main issue ultimately is that when it's not done in good faith, it delivers you a bunch of incendiary shit you don't like because it's just trying to drive engagement, and you react more strongly to like negative stimuli because we're humans and that's how we're wired. But even on the flip side, and in my opinion perhaps more harmfully, best case scenario, the algorithm shows you a bunch of stuff that you like, and it's trained to provide to you what you like based on what you show it that you like, which comes from watching the stuff it thinks you will like. Like, you might very well love every single thing that comes across your YouTube homepage, your Netflix and your Hulu recommendations, your Spotify weekly AI curated playlists, your suggested books on Audible, and that's nice. You could go to Subway on your way home every night after work and get a tuna sandwich on white and eat that every night, and you'd be just like Jared. Hopefully not just like Jared, but you get the point. But have you ever tried something new and been surprised to find that you like something you didn't already know that you liked? Like, how do you find out what you liked in the first place? Like, if we spent our whole lives only consuming algorithmically curated playlists of things that we already like, we'd eat nothing but mac and cheese and watch Cocomelon all day, and oh my god, that's exactly what's happening. Obviously, I'm exaggerating and being a little tongue-in-cheek, but really, think about it for a second. A massive part of the joy of life is watching a show you didn't think you like, and then being like, oh shit, wait, Belly's choosing Conrad? Jeremiah's so much cuter, what the hell? Oh my god, Steven and Shayla? Susanna has brain cancer? And I'm just talking about like finding new things that you like, trying new foods, listening to new music. Like, some of my favorite music of all time is stuff that's come out in the last few years that sounds nothing like the stuff that I generally like, and that music has shaped my perspective on life in new ways. It's made me a better songwriter and composer. It's made me more empathetic and thoughtful as a person. Or reading a book you didn't know you would like and then being like, oh my god, is Lord of the Rings basically a musical? I didn't know Tolkien was writing bangers like this, and then reading the rest of the series and making it like 20% at least of your personality. Life is about finding new stuff to accompany the things that you already like, broadening your perspective, discovering new things about yourself through discovering things you didn't know you liked already. That's one of my main issues with algorithmic curation. I like watching strange little guys torture themselves with punishingly difficult self-imposed Pokemon Nuzlocke rules. But if that's the only thing that I got to watch on YouTube, I think I would lose my mind. I just made a video about the importance of what I call directional dissonance, which is the apparent like disharmony in your interest and letting yourself be pulled in different directions, and how important that is in like having fun while you're consuming media. Not even withstanding all the other stuff, just like how important it is to have fun while you're watching stuff. yourself, or reading a book, or listening to music. That's at the like often forgotten core of the absolute privilege that we have of media consumption. We get to sit in air-conditioned houses and watch TV if we want to. We should take that privilege with a little bit more personal responsibility, in my opinion. And what we used to do is ask people like, hey, what should I watch? And your friends, who are not typically electronic supercomputers designed to please you, although I know that they are nowadays for some people at an increasing rate. And hey guys, let's like stop making friends with AI chatbots. Can we like not do that? Have you seen Ex Machina? But you'd ask your friends and your coworkers who have all kinds of different perspectives and life experiences, and they'd say, oh, well, I just watched this and it's about blank. And you'd be like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And then you would like, well, most of the time you would ignore that and just watch like reruns of The Office again on Comedy Central. But sometimes you'd check out what they thought, or you'd have a book club that decides collectively on a book that everyone would read, or you'd go to the movies based on what your friend group wants to see. You'd pick up a CD at the store because it was on sale and you'd see if you like it. All of that stuff still kind of happens, sure, but more often than not, we're letting programs designed to placate us give us exactly what we can demonstrate we already like. And we're sitting there drinking the same smoothie, regurgitating it, drinking it again, and so on, and what we're watching and listening to is decreasing in quality in the same way that the smoothie would be increasingly disgusting the more times that you throw it up. And that was a gross metaphor, but hopefully you get my point. What I want to do is make sure that my channel remains a beacon of humanity on this cold, undying corporate hell that is the modern internet. And in addition to my normal, regularly scheduled, unhinged ramblings about life and creativity and philosophy, I am going to start weaponizing the insanely unlikely community that you guys have somehow gifted me for good. I sent out a survey a few weeks ago. Some of what was on that survey was just for fun and my own kind of curiosity, and I think it's super interesting, and I'll go over that stuff at the end. But the second part of the survey was so that I could start the following thing: a community-based analog algorithm of sorts, which we people on our cute little corner of the internet can use to curate our own media consumption experience again. Basically, a curation algorithm that is a little bit more interest-based than asking your like 60-year-old coworker what movie to watch when you get home, because it's all viewers of the same channel, my weird little channel. Like, all responders to the survey have some level of shared interest with you, and at least that they are probably a little more apt to being like a little more thoughtful than average in terms of what music, movies, books, YouTube channels you're watching, reading, or listening to. But it's not a computer assistant going, yes sir, more Nintendo Wii jailbreaking content for you, sir. I brought you your favorite yet again. Yes sir, please don't hit me. I think that ideally this is like a really good way of, not to be like an arrogant prick, but like weeding out really stupid derivative garbage, because I don't think a lot of like Italian brain rot Minecraft video fans are watching Shameless Nerd, while still leaving like the parameters pretty open for media recommendations and not creating an echo chamber. So I took the results of this first survey and made 4 things: a Goodreads bookshelf, which you can go to and has links as to where you could buy the books if you like, a Spotify playlist, which you can listen to on shuffle, or you can go through and listen to things manually if you prefer. And I know that not everybody has Spotify. I don't even have Spotify anymore, but you can pull up the playlist on the free version, or you can go through it on a free account, or not even have an account. And I know that the majority of people who would be interested statistically do have Spotify, so I figured that was the best option. I also made a letterboxed list, which you can go through and look at movie recommendations, and finally a Google Doc with YouTube channels to check out, on which I even provided links to every single one of those YouTube channels. And before I go over some of the highlights, I'd like to put 90 seconds on the clock for the 4th ever Shameless Nerd ad read, the first for which I have absolutely no moral apprehension about, and that is the genuinely awesome service Uppbeat. A lot of my viewers are creators of stuff, and I mean, thank God. I've made multiple videos about why that's so cool, and you guys are so cool, and my email inbox is like the coolest place on the internet. A lot of you guys make YouTube videos yourself, or do video editing, or short films, or music and accompanying music videos, and if you do any of that stuff, you really should consider using Uppbeat, which I think genuinely is one of the coolest services for creators that I've ever seen. Also, I just want to shout out this company and let y'all behind the curtain a little bit. Like, I get offers from random companies all the time, and they'll email back and forth with me about specifics of the sponsorship and make me clear the ad read with them up front and make ultimatums, and that's why I say no to most of them. But when Jenna from Uppbeat emailed me, she mentioned specifics about videos of mine that she has seen, and it was very obvious that she liked me and liked my channel, and it's very obvious that they care about creators and creative endeavor. And we did like a little Zoom meeting, and we talked and laughed, and it was fun and light, and they gave me no specific requirements, and they just said like, hey, this is what we do, and we think that you're really cool, and we want to support you and your stuff. And I just think that that's like indicative of the company, who, sorry for rambling, are a creator-first platform on which you can find royalty-free music exclusively not made by AI generation, which is very cool, and motion graphics and LUTs for color grading videos and sound effects. And they have an ethical revenue sharing model with the creators that make the stuff for the platform, and it's really genuinely just good. And with Uppbeat, you don't have to deal with any of the bullshit, and you are supporting real, human, independent artists and creators, and there is a free version that gives you 3 downloads a month for free, like actually just for free. But if you do want to support the channel, and if you want more options and unlimited downloads, you can can use my affiliate link in the description to get 20% off your subscription, and I get like a little bit paid, okay, every time that somebody signs up, so please do that if you want to support the channel, and this is something that could be of use to you. Thank you so much to all of you guys who continue to support my stupid little channel and continue to provide me these very strange and insane opportunities. This has been the coolest period of my entire life, and thank you to Uppbeat for being a rare, seemingly good and ethical company providing a real quality service. All right, back to the video.
All right, so I got over 340 responses to the survey, which was incredibly cool and also took me about 2 weeks to figure out how to handle. So what I ended up doing was combining and narrowing all the responses and then including on the list all that were given more than once. So all of the things on these lists were mentioned at least twice, and that's what I used to decide like what to include on a list. And then I ranked them based on how many times that response was given. So that way it's not just like an out of order list of 340 random things with a bunch of duplicates. This shit took forever, but it was fun. All right, here we go. So for movies, the number one response was Interstellar, which I have not actually seen and will be watching soon. Number 2 was Spirited Away, which is an absolute all-timer. Might have been my answer if I was answering these survey questions myself. And then surprisingly, at number 3, we have How to Train Your Dragon. I was surprised by this, but I'm excited to see what all the hype is about. And then we had some classics like Princess Bride, which is an absolute banger, followed by my personal favorite, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, and then Everything Everywhere All at Once, which won Oscars and seems very stressful, but I will gladly check out. And then Shrek 2, like, okay. I mean, it's a good movie. It's great. And then Howl's Moving Castle, which is another Studio Ghibli film, which is incredible. And then Forrest Gump rounding out the top 10. There are 33 films that made the cut, listed as almost half of the 330 total responses, none of which I have seen and like disagree with. And I think that if you're trying to find some movies to watch, it would be a great place to start and just kind of work your way down the list, check off some of these that you haven't seen. My personal top 5 of all 33 would be Fantastic Mr. Fox, Nightmare Before Christmas, Grave of the Fireflies, which is just an absolute gut punch of a movie, Fellowship of the Ring, of course, and Spirited Away. Here is the whole list. I'll give you a second to look at that, but like I said before, all of the links to these are in the description. All right, moving on to albums. Albums was interesting because there is just so much music, and it's even less objective than movies are. The number one album on this list, to illustrate this, was listed a grand total of 6 times. There are 26 total albums on the playlist for a grand total of 392 songs, 25 hours of music. In other words, that's a ton of music, but there is a ton of music that, given the parameters I set for this edition of the Shameless Nerd Curation Algorithm newsletter or whatever, just didn't make the cut. And when we do the next one, I'll either broaden the criteria as to what gets included on the final list, and or I will be far more specific as to how the question is asked and do maybe like a categories type thing. So if you don't see a response on here, you're not the only one, I promise you. The number one best album of all time, according to Shameless Nerd viewers, is Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. This is a great answer. I can't argue too much with this one. I think it's a great pick. It's not like my personal pick, but I am very proud of you guys for not picking something embarrassing. Number 2 is a massive surprise to me that is not an embarrassing choice, but is nonetheless surprising. And that is Hosier's self-titled album, which I have not heard in full, but from what I have heard is like a very well done album, and I will have to check that one out. And then at number 3, we have the very classic and safe answer, Abbey Road by the Beatles, which I think is perfectly sane and, a safe pick and a great album. Number 4 is an album I have not heard called Strange Trails by Lord Huron. Then we have Nirvana's Nevermind, which makes sense enough to me. And then we get a little bit wacky. So after Nevermind, every album on the list was listed only twice. So really, they're all tied for 6th place after this. And we have in this group some of my absolute favorite albums of all time, like Pretty Odd by Panic at the Disco, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge by My Chemical Romance, Nurture by Porter Robinson, Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life, Bon Iver's For Emma Forever Ago, some really great albums. We also have some albums that wouldn't exactly make my top 26 albums list, but that's the whole point of the exercise. So I'm not going to try to poke holes in anybody's music taste. I think this is a great, eclectic, like fun playlist to put on shuffle on a road trip, and you just have no idea what will come next. But there's nothing on here that's like offensive or horrible, like meme tier garbage, which is nice to know. As a musician and a music snob, I'm proud of y'all. On to books. This one is largely like a greatest hits playlist, but a lot of these I do think are like borderline required readings. And if there's anything on here of these like greatest hits kind of books that you haven't read, I think they're pretty much all worth reading. The top few also skew towards series because I included all books that were an entry in a series as part of the series and listed those at the top, but they are as follows. I am proud to announce that at number 1 we have Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is definitely the greatest series ever written from my perspective, and if you have somehow never read Lord of the Rings, you should read it and then spend the 9.5 hours or so that it takes to watch all of the Lord of the Rings movies. Number 2 is the Hunger Games series, which, I mean, sure. I mean, I like the Hunger Games. I'm okay with that. And then at number 3, we have a 6-way tie between 6 books that I don't think have ever been grouped together for any reason. And they are, of course, the Harry Potter series, 1984 by George Orwell, The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, or whatever French name there. I don't know how to pronounce that. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, The Stand by Stephen King, and The Bible by, well, that's quite a point of contention now, isn't it? Depends on who you ask. We've got some great books in the list of twice given responses, like Turtles All the Way Down by John Green, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Oh, I love that book. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, which is a great book as well. Lots to love here. Everything from classics like The Odyssey by Homer, all the way to a book by Jeanette McCurdy and everything in between. Really fun and interesting list for books. And finally, we move on to YouTube channels. I asked the question in these terms. Who is your favorite YouTuber? And you can be honest, I'm not going to get my feelings hurt. This is not a trap. And despite that clarifier, the overwhelming number one answer was yours truly, Reed from Shameless Nerd, with 56 total votes. I am humbled and overjoyed at this response, and frankly a little confused because, like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. There are so many great YouTubers, but hey, you like what you like. I'm glad that people are watching. Thank you very much. At number 2, with a grand total of 7 votes, is Drew Gooden, one of my favorite YouTubers out there. Tied for 3rd are Smosh and Hank Green, 2 very different channels, both of which I love. Hank Green a little more than Smosh, but Smosh is a fun platform for some talented improv actors at this point in their like very strange development arc over the many years of their existence on YouTube, and I appreciate that. Then with 3 mentions each, we have Scott the Woz, who I love, Game Grumps, Red Letter Media, I Did a Thing, who I absolutely love, and Curtis Connor. And then for YouTube channels, being that this one is particularly important to me because that's where I think we get preyed upon the most by the algorithm, I went through the list beyond the entries with at least 2 votes, and I watched YouTube channels at random based on these recommendations, and I added more to the list based on those until I got to 50. And then in the next edition of this series, I'll do 50 more, and maybe I'll do some by genre or by subscriber count, etc. But I was pleased to find some really cool creators like Magic the Noah, who seems to make like really wacky games for he and his friends to play, or Caroline Winkler, who I've just fallen in love with. She does like interior design stuff and is just infectiously fun and affable, and I love her. The link to the description, the link to the document. The link to the document with the full 50 is in the description, and on that document are links to all of these channels. Thank you to every single person who filled out the survey and everyone who continues to support my stupid ass making these stupid ass videos. I love y'all so much. Thanks for watching. See y'all next time. In today's post-video, I am going to go over the rest of this stuff. So I have the survey pulled up here, which you can see has 342 responses, which is just unreal that I could put something on the internet and 342 people would respond to it. It's just ridiculous. I am so beyond like blessed and lucky to have this weird ass experience happening to me. So we're just gonna go through it real quick and let's look at some of the responses. I'm gonna save some of the categories for time's sake and also just for the depth that I want to give them for like something else. I'm not sure what I want to do with them yet, but I want to look at minimum the multiple choice questions and kind of look at the data and talk a little bit about it, and then some of the other stuff as well. But I'll explain when I get there. So first of all, I asked some questions just because I was curious. For example, what is your current screen time average on your phone? 1 being 1 hour, 10 being 10 hours or more. And I was very pleased to see and unsurprised to see that our bell curve here for Shameless Nerd viewers skews below average. That over half of you guys are below average. The average in the United States being 4.5 hours. Our bell curve peaks here at 3 and then goes down from there. I do see that there are 11 of you guys who are spending 10 or more hours a day on your phone, and yeah, we need to go figure that out. Go ahead and figure that out. Let's figure that out. Next question here. How often would you say you listen to something throughout the day? So this one was just curiosity. I don't know what this means. I was having a conversation and I was thinking about this, about how often people are listening to stuff and how often they are like sitting with their own inner monologue. And I don't know what I think. I don't know that this is bad, but I do find it a little bit interesting, potentially not good. I don't know enough to know that it's bad, but interesting at minimum that the highest demographic of us are spending 8 out of 10, or like I didn't do it like hours, but just self-described 8 out of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how much they are listening to something. That feels high to me. I don't know what that means, but that feels high. I don't know. Maybe somebody out there who is smarter than I am, who like, oh, that brings me to this. If you guys, if any of you guys are like data people out there and you want to look at this stuff and mess around with the data, send me an email, readfromshamelessnerd@gmail.com. I will give you access to this. You can see all of the data and stuff if you want to mess around with it. Those of you that are listening, so we're listening to stuff a lot, 8 out of 10 of the time, and 77% of the time that we are doing that, we're listening to music. For whatever reason, I was happy to see this. I mean, I listen to a ton of podcasts. To be perfectly honest, I probably listen to more podcasts than music right now, which I don't love now that I say out loud. But for whatever reason, I'm happy to see that it is mostly music for you guys. I think podcasts are great. I just said, I listen to a ton of podcasts. When you guys are listening to music, 74% of you guys are listening to music that you've known for a long time. The other quarter of us are finding new music, and I think that this is interesting, but that's about what I would have expected. I definitely would fall into this red category over the blue category myself. These next two I thought were very interesting. So I found it encouraging and nice that the highest demographic of us said that our mental health is a 7 out of 10 on a scale of 1 being in need of an occasional hospitalization. The 3 of you who marked that, I feel you. I've been there, my friends. To 10 being you're having the best day of your life every day. And 4 of you said that is the case. So I need the 4 of you, if you're watching this, to email me and tell me what the hell it is that you are doing so that I can hop on track with that. Right now, I'd probably say I'm like a 5. I'm going through a breakup, so not perfect. Mental health is not perfect right now, but I'm not doing, horribly. But the majority of you guys, relatively speaking, I know it's not a majority, but the majority, I don't know how to say that, the most commonly chosen answer said 7 out of 10, which is cool. And, almost a majority of you guys were 7 or higher, which is cool. Similarly, and I want to make an interesting claim about what I think that these two mean in conjunction. But similarly, the majority of you guys, and again, this is an actual majority, 21 plus 25 is 46, plus 9 is 54, plus 5 is 59. A majority of you guys said that you are happy at a 7 out of 10 or higher, which I think is really cool. And the highest demographic block in there is an 8 out of 10, which is higher. If we look at the bell curve peaks higher and is higher at its peak than it is for mental health. And so what I think this means is that we are happy as a people, that we are aware of how privileged we are in the modern world, and we are happy with the lives that we get to live, generally speaking. However, there are forces at work. There are oppressive things in our lives that are just that are things in our life that are keeping us from being as mentally healthy as we are happy. That's just a theory based on very imperfect science here, but that's the way that I interpret that. This one makes no sense. I just thought that this was interesting. There's no bell curve here. There's no pattern here. Only 5 of you guys are playing video games as the only thing you do in your free time, which I think is cool. I don't think there really should be any one thing that everybody's doing in their free time, so I think that that's cool. 41 of you guys, 12% of y'all are not playing video games at all, which is fine also. I just thought it was interesting that there's no pattern here. There's no clean curve. There's no clean bell curve here, which I thought was interesting. This was unsurprising and very encouraging that the overwhelming majority of you guys have 4 or fewer social media apps on your phone. Now, obviously, this data was inevitable that it looked like this because these are all people who are watching my YouTube videos, which are all about, social media being bad. I mean, I like to think that I'm more nuanced than that, but I think if I was going to summarize it very briefly, then I think that's the way that I would say it. But I do think that this speaks to a trend that I am noticing outside of just my little corner of the internet, but that I'm noticing in the news, that I'm noticing anecdotally in my life, across age demographics, and noticing with my students who are between the ages of 12 to 14 compared to students that I had 5 years ago, which is that people are moving away from social media a little bit. That there are seeds starting to sprout of a shift away from so much social media, which I think is cool. I think that's good. And I'm optimistic that is what is happening. The next one is, how highly would you rate your willingness to try new things? 26 of you guys are novelty junkies, which I cannot relate to, but I think is very nice. But most of us like to try new things, which I think is good. These next two are 2 paragraphs, 1 equally important questions here. What's your favorite genre of movie, and are you religious? I'm religious about movies. What's your favorite genre of movie out of the following? And then I noticed I didn't put drama on here, which in retrospect I realized I should have put drama. I kind of galaxy brained myself and was like, oh, but you know, a romance can be a drama, a horror can be a drama, a comedy, but also like a romance can be a comedy, an action can be a tragedy. You know what I mean? Like I should have put drama on here. I don't know what I was thinking. But out of the ones that are listed here, the biggest contingency of you guys prefer comedy to anything else, which I think is cool because comedies are not being made at the same rate and with the same budget as they used to. So I think that that's cool. Hopefully that speaks to an increased and hopefully increasing interest in comedies because I also love comedies and I just want variety. I know people like Marvel, right? But like, how many Spider-Mans do we need? You know what I mean? Now there's a cartoon Spider-Man, there's a Spider-Man TV show, there's a kid Spider-Man TV show, there's an adult Spider-Man TV show, there's Spider-Man, there's Spider-Girl, there's Spider-Dog, I'm sure. You know what I mean? Anyway, on that note, action is the second highest here, which I figured would be the case, and that's fine. I don't mean to shit on it. It's not my thing, but I mean, it's perfectly valid as an interest. It's just not my thing. And then down from there, we have 54 of you guys, 15% of you who are watching horror movies, which I will shit on. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? What's wrong with you watching scary stuff? Are you crazy? Do you guys sleep? Do you guys go to bed? Go to bed. Go to sleep. 10% of you guys prefer tragedy, which is where I would fall, which, you know, I'm being silly, but I am, you know, poking fun at people who like horror films. I think that says something about me and the 34 of us who prefer tragedy to other things, that's our preferred genre of movie. But, yeah, I don't know what that says exactly, but I think it says something. And then romance is the smallest here by a slim margin. And then the last one that we will look at in here is, are you religious? And I thought this was interesting, and I think that there is an interesting thing to say about this. So I figured the highest demographic would be atheist, would be no, not religious. You know, we're a secular society. Last time I looked at it, I think 40% or so of Americans identify as like secular now or whatever. I can't remember the exact wording. So I figured honestly that this would be a little bit higher, and I think it's interesting actually that it is not 40 or higher, given the kind of skepticism that is inherent in like my channel, I think, too, you know? Because this is my little pet theory. So about 32% said no, okay? The next highest block said I don't know. I think that I don't know / agnostic is higher than it would have been a few years ago, and that there are actually like little bubbles starting to percolate of young people moving back toward not organized religion in the same way that we used to necessarily, but a reversion to longing for the community of spirituality, the sense of reassurance that religion can give someone, the sense of like connectedness and togetherness and community, which I think I said a minute ago, you know, connectedness to nature and the world and feeling of a place in the universe and all of those things. I think that we are so scared from what we know that now there are a lot of people that are like, well, maybe there's something else. And, you know, they're like a great book, Soul Boom, which is by Rainn Wilson. If you've never heard of or read that book, you should read it. Rainn Wilson, the guy who played Dwight. I realize that he played Dwight on The Office, but very thoughtful, very interesting and articulate and smart person, wrote a book called Soul Boom, which you should read, that kind of speaks to this seeming beginning of a shift back toward not religion, but like perhaps religiosity or like spirituality in some way. And basically, I would theorize that these two groups, spiritual but not religious per se, and I don't know exactly / agnostic, are higher than they would have been a few years ago, which I think is cool. I think that that's great. I think I would identify as like this one, spiritual but not religious per se. I think that's kind of where I would fall. The next highest demographic said yes, which was, just a blanket, like explicit, yes, I am religious. And then the smallest demographic said, yes, but it's complicated, which I would be either green or red, I think, personally here. I think that that's interesting. And I wanted to end on that note just because I think that one is a cool one to kind of ponder as you turn this video off and watch something else. I don't know. I'm kind of stalling because I don't want this video to end yet. I want everybody to have to sit and think for a second about what that could mean. If anything. Maybe it means nothing. It probably means nothing. Love you guys. Bye.